They said the Perseus Rift had no voice, only silence deep enough to drown a civilization. But that night the silence screamed, and every human soul who heard it understood that the universe had finally noticed them. The exploration ship Solace drifted at the edge of the known map, its hull glimmering like a lone heartbeat against the black. Captain Elias Rain stood at the observation deck watching the starfield bend, not move, not fade, bend, as if space itself were breathing. No probe had survived here. Every drone sent before Solace had vanished in static. Yet Command had ordered one more mission, for data, they said, for proof. But deep inside, everyone aboard knew it was something else. Curiosity pretending not to be fear. The crew moved quietly, their words swallowed by the hum of recycled air. Kira Sun, lead xenophysicist, whispered readings to herself like prayers. Graviton shear increasing. Magnetic flux off charts. No physical mass detected, just resonance. Rain didn't answer. His eyes stayed fixed on the void. It wasn't dark anymore. It pulsed, like veins beneath translucent skin. A low tremor rolled through the deck plates, subtle at first, then deeper, heavier, until every bolt sang in metallic protest. Sound? Kira asked. Rain shook his head. No vibration medium out there. That's not sound. That's gravity speaking. Another pulse, louder, clearer. The ship's lights dimmed, power routing automatically to shields. Alarms stayed silent. There was something sacred about it, as if the vessel itself refused to interrupt. And then the roar came. It didn't arrive through speakers or atmosphere. It arrived inside them, a vibration in the marrow. It wasn't rage or hunger. It was a call, ancient, patient, vast enough to make galaxies shudder. One of the younger officers, barely 20, began to cry. "Captain, what is that?" Ren's voice barely rose above a whisper. "Something alive." The external cameras caught the impossible. A shape blooming from distortion, edges rippling between geometry and storm. Its scale mocked imagination, kilometers across, yet somehow fluid, its form rewriting itself with every photon it touched. Sensors went blind. AI Core 9 tried to map it but crashed within seconds, stuttering a single phrase before shutdown. Undefined entity, pattern recursive. The crew stared. No one breathed. It was beautiful in the way of hurricanes and dying suns, beauty born of inevitability. Another tremor surged through the void. The stars behind the creature blurred into rings, as if the universe were looking through tears. The roar hit again, deeper this time, resonating through the ship's structure. Shields flared blue. Kira gripped the rail. "Captain!" "That isn't random. It's modulation. There's pattern in the roar." Ren frowned. "You're saying it's language?" "Not words, emotion, a signal encoded in gravity waves, like a heart beating in code." For a moment, no one spoke. Then the captain did what humans always do when the impossible stares back. He reached for understanding. "Record everything," he ordered. "Every frequency, every pulse. Maybe it's not warning us. Maybe it's calling." Solace's engines drifted idle. The fleet far behind waited for updates that never came. Transmission lag through the rift was measured in hours. Out here, they were alone. Just one fragile vessel facing something older than starlight. Minutes bled into hours. The creature remained, hovering beyond the boundary where matter surrendered to energy. It neither approached nor withdrew. It simply was, a cosmic sentinel, roaring not in anger but in inquiry. Kira broke the silence. "Captain, I think it wants to know if we'll run." Rain turned toward her, jaw set. The roar still echoed faintly in his bones, like the aftertaste of thunder. "And if we don't?" Her answer came in a whisper. "Then it will see us." He almost smiled at that. Humanity had spent millennia begging the stars to notice. Now one finally had. He gave the order softly. "Maintain position. Power down weapons. Keep channels open." The lights dimmed to twilight. Outside, the beast's outline shimmered, vast tendrils of luminous matter unfurling like auroras, curling through the void. It wasn't attacking. It was listening. Inside, fear thickened the air. Some of the crew prayed quietly. Others stared, hypnotized. Humanity had always imagined first contact as dialogue, handshake, exchange of symbols. None imagined it would feel like kneeling before creation itself. Rain leaned close to the viewport. "If this is a test," he murmured, "it chose the right species." The roar faded, replaced by a low hum that seemed to wait for reply. In the command deck's half-light, Elias Rain's reflection met his own eyes in the glass, a man small enough to be erased by a whisper of cosmic wind, yet stubborn enough to answer it. "Prepare the comm arrays," he said. "If the universe is calling, we'll call back." The void pulsed once, almost expectantly, as if listening. And Solace began to speak. The stars had stopped flickering. Out there, beyond the trembling glass of Solace, the void itself seemed to wait. And for the first time, humanity realized something was listening. In the command deck, silence had texture, heavy like the air before a storm. Every console hummed low, every breath measured, every heartbeat audible against the quiet thrum of the ship's engines. Captain Elias Wren stood still, watching that cosmic shape, that colossal being suspended between light and infinity, and felt the weight of a truth older than creation. It was not hunting them. It was watching. Dr. Kira Sun's voice broke the silence. "The roar has stopped. Energy fields are stable, Captain. I think it's waiting for us." Her words carried both awe and terror, the kind that comes when a scientist realizes the universe has noticed her name. Wren didn't respond immediately. His gaze stayed locked on the viewing window, where the creature's tendrils shimmered in slow motion, weaving through space-time like silk in water. It had form and no form, fractal geometry folding over itself, endlessly rewriting its shape as if reality were too small to contain it. "What do you do?" he murmured. "When a god starts listening." No one answered. They had tried everything, coded light pulses, quantum pings, harmonic frequencies, but the thing beyond the hull didn't speak in data or numbers. It spoke in feeling. Every attempt to analyze it returned nonsense, waveforms that matched no physics, readings that behaved like emotions more than signals. Then it began. The first to feel it was Ensign Lyra. She'd fallen asleep in the mess hall chair, exhaustion pressing her eyelids shut. She woke gasping, clutching her chest, eyes wide with tears she couldn't explain. "I saw," she stammered, "a son dying, and something crying for it." Hours later, 2 more crew members reported the same. Dreams filled with impossible skies, oceans that sang, hands made of light reaching toward them. The beast wasn't speaking. It was sending, not through comms, but through emotion, echoing inside their subconscious like whispers between neurons. Kira was the first to understand. "It's communicating through resonance," she said, pacing across the deck, her voice trembling with revelation. "It's using empathy as a medium, not data packets, not energy bursts, but feeling itself. Every thought it sends ripples through our emotional centers." Rain frowned. "So it's inside our heads?" "Not invasive," she said softly. "Exploratory, curious, like it's trying to understand courage. Maybe even humanity." The word lingered. Humanity. The one thing they had brought with them that no sensor could record. For the next 12 hours, Solace became a listening post between worlds. Dreams replaced dialogue. Some crew members reported hearing heartbeats that weren't their own. Others claimed to see flashes of memories that didn't belong to them. Soldiers, children, lovers, moments of both pain and hope, painted across the theater of the mind. The ship's logs filled with strange poetry. A galaxy crying in colors no spectrum can name. A feeling like being remembered by the dark. An ache that doesn't hurt, but humbles. And always, beyond it all, the beast, watching. Rain recorded his reflections into the mission log that night. His voice was low, controlled, but beneath the tone was something raw. "Whatever it is, it's testing us," he said. "Not through weapons or war, but through understanding. It wants to feel what it means to be human." He paused, glancing toward the viewport. I think it wants to know if courage can exist without fear. Kira's analysis confirmed it. The entity's energy pulses spiked whenever a crew member experienced strong emotion. Fear, wonder, even laughter. Each reaction was mirrored by a gravitational fluctuation outside, as though the creature were tasting those feelings. But curiosity turned quickly into unease. "Captain," the communications officer whispered, "every time we react, it reacts harder. The pulses are growing stronger." Ren nodded slowly. "Like feedback in a conversation neither side fully understands." The crew gathered in the observation deck, faces pale under the dim light. They were explorers of the human heart now, and the terrain was turning strange. Kira broke the silence again. "We've tried light, sound, data, it ignores all that. But it listens to emotion. Maybe we should send it something purely human." "Like what?" Rain asked. She hesitated. "Not words, not logic. Something it can feel." There was a pause. Then, from the ship's archives, she pulled an old file, a recording of a child's heartbeat synced with a melody from Earth. It was simple, raw human, 2 rhythms woven together, one biological, one created. Music. The captain approved it without ceremony. There was nothing else left to try. "Patch it to the comm dish," he said. "Full amplitude. Let it play into the void." And so they did. Soft notes filled the solace, gentle and imperfect. A song that once lulled a child to sleep now drifted across billions of kilometers of nothingness. Each pulse of sound carried a piece of humanity, frailty, warmth, courage, love, bleeding into the deep. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the universe answered. The creature's surface flared like liquid lightning. Tendrils of color rippled through the dark, forming patterns so vast they defied geometry. Every wavelength screamed life. But amid the beauty came a tremor that wasn't awe. It was pain. The beast roared, not in rage, but in torment. Its resonance turned chaotic, distorting the ship's instruments. The deck shook. Energy surged through every panel. Kira staggered. "Captain, it's reacting up violently." Rain steadied himself against the railing. "Shut it down?" She shook her head. No, listen. It's not attacking. It's hurting. Our emotions, our song, it's overwhelming it." The realization struck hard. Humanity had offered the universe a heartbeat, and the universe was choking on it. The purity of human feeling, raw, unfiltered, undefended, was something even a god could not endure. Lights flickered. Gravity wavered. For a moment, Ren saw stars bending like water around the creature's body, forming halos of distorted light. He swore he heard voices, thousands of them, crying, laughing, whispering. The sum of every emotion ever felt, colliding in that endless dark. He closed his eyes. "We gave it what it wanted," he murmured. "And it found out what we are." Outside, the beast's luminous tendrils coiled inward, trembling, as if struggling to contain itself. The roar began to fracture, high, trembling notes like the sound of metal under strain. Every vibration pressed against human senses until even thought felt like thunder. Kira's voice came soft through the chaos. "Captain, maybe it's afraid." The words hung there, unthinkable. The idea that something older than galaxies could feel fear. Rain turned toward her, his face half lit by the pulsating glow beyond the glass. "Then it understands us," he said quietly. "Fear is where courage begins." The storm outside began to calm. The light faded from violent white to soft blue, the gravitational distortions smoothing into gentle waves. The beast seemed to breathe again, slower now, its resonance steady, deliberate. Through the calm static came a faint vibration, not words, not even sound, just a pulse. 2 beats, then silence. Heartbeats. It was repeating what they'd sent. The bridge fell still. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Kira smiled faintly through her exhaustion. "It learned," she whispered. "It felt." Rain exhaled slowly, relief and awe tangled in one breath. "Then maybe it's not testing us anymore. Maybe it's trying to answer." But the relief was fragile. Outside, the beast's light dimmed further, its outline dissolving back into the folds of the rift. It was retreating, or resting. Whatever connection they'd forged had come at a cost. The crew's dreams that night were different. Not visions of dying suns or cosmic grief, but fragments of humanity mirrored back to them. A child's laughter, a mother's lullaby, a man standing unbroken before something vast. It was as if the beast were replaying what it had learned, feeling it again, through borrowed hearts. Rayan recorded one last entry before sleep claimed. Him, whatever it is, he said softly. It understands us now. But understanding doesn't mean peace. We've shown it who we are, and that truth might be louder than it can bear. He looked once more toward the rift. The stars there shimmered faintly like embers in deep water. For the first time since the mission began, he smiled. Weary, defiant, almost human enough to challenge the gods. Tomorrow, he said, we'll see if it still wants to listen. The solace drifted in silence, the echoes of music fading into the void. Far beyond the hull, something vast stirred, wounded, awakened, curious. And as the crew slept beneath artificial night, the beast listened once more, to the faint, stubborn rhythm of human hearts. There are moments when courage stops being a word and becomes a question, when silence grows teeth and the stars themselves lean close to hear your answer. That was the moment Solace entered the trial. It began with light. Not the cold shimmer of starlight, but something thicker, liquid, alive. The void outside the ship rippled, bending reality like heat above desert sand. And then, in an instant, all sensors died. The crew didn't scream, not yet. They'd seen strange things before. Impossible physics, silent anomalies, cosmic storms that whispered equations no human could solve. But this was different. This was inside. Dr. Kira Sun was the first to notice. Her console flashed random letters, strings of words rearranging into fragments of her own handwriting. Personal notes she'd never uploaded. Captain, she whispered, it's in our systems. But not digitally, it's cognitive. Captain Elias Rand turned toward the viewport. The rift had vanished. Space itself had folded inward, replaced by a faint pulsating glow that breathed like lungs. He felt it in his chest before he heard it in his head, a pressure, a pulse, like a heartbeat that wasn't his. And then the world broke. The lights dimmed. The hum of the ship fell away. For a heartbeat, there was nothing. Then Earth burned. Flames crawled across continents. Oceans boiled. Through the viewport, Elias saw the planet that raised him dissolve into ash. He knew it couldn't be real. The solace was light years away. But his mind refused logic. The smell of smoke filled his lungs. The screams sounded human. He stumbled back. This isn't real, he muttered. It's not real. A voice, deep and resonant, filled his thoughts. Fear defines the shape of courage. The beast was not speaking in sound anymore. It had trapped them within a field woven from memory, guilt, and dread. Every crew member saw something different, a personal apocalypse drawn from their own buried terror. Ensign Lyra saw the airlock open by itself, her brother's voice whispering from the vacuum. Chief Engineer Rao saw his tools melting into the faces of the men he'd lost in a reactor fire years ago. Kira saw herself floating alone in endless space, solace gone, her voice echoing unanswered into eternity. The beast wasn't attacking their ship. It was dissecting their souls. Elias stumbled into the corridor, lights flickering overhead. The ship groaned, metal warping under unseen pressure. He could feel the psychic grip tightening, the beast feeding on fear like a parasite made of empathy. Crew members screamed behind sealed doors. Some were catatonic, trapped in hallucinations of loss or regret. Others clawed at the walls, begging to be woken up. Kira's voice came through comms, cracked, trembling. Captain, it's showing us what we fear most. It's not an illusion, it's reflection. The field reacts to emotion. The more we panic, the stronger it gets. So we stop being afraid, Rain said hoarsely. Easier said than done, she replied. It's inside us. He pressed his palm against the cold metal wall. It vibrated faintly, like a living thing. Then we remind it what we are. He found Kira in the medbay, her body shaking, her eyes hollow. Around her, the walls shifted between metal and bone, the room breathing like a giant lung. She barely noticed when he approached. "It's showing me everyone I've lost," she whispered. "All their voices begging me not to forget them." I can't make it stop." Rain knelt beside her, gripping her shoulder. "Kira, look at me." She did. Her pupils were wide, tears glimmering like tiny mirrors. In those eyes, he saw the truth. Humanity's greatest fear wasn't death. It was being alone. "You're not," he said simply. "Not while I'm breathing." For a moment, the walls steadied. The light softened. The air warmed. The beast felt that. The fragile, stubborn thread of connection between two frightened humans. The ship pulsed, an echo, uncertain, as if questioning the sensation. Rain stood. "It's not testing our strength," he said. "It's measuring our capacity to stay human in the dark." The psychic storm intensified. Reality blurred between waking and nightmare. Crew members saw shifting corridors, endless loops, voices of loved ones pleading from the static. But through the chaos, Elias moved with purpose, calling names, grounding them, anchoring one human mind after another to reality. "Listen to me," he shouted across the bridge. "The fear isn't real unless we let it be." "Remember who you are!" A junior officer sobbed, clutching his ears. "It's inside my head, Captain. I can't." Rain grabbed him by the collar. "Then fight it. Not with weapons, not with anger. With yourself. Fear only wins when it breaks the human voice." The bridge shimmered again. The illusion tried to twist his words, replacing his crew with hollow-eyed doppelgangers, whispering doubt. "You can't win," the beast murmured. "All courage ends in silence." Rand smiled, tired, bleeding from a cut that wasn't physical but felt real all the same. "Then we'll scream louder." In the darkness, the crew began to hear something faint, rhythmic, defiant. A heartbeat, not from the ship's systems but from each other. Human pulse syncing, one after another, forming a pattern that the psychic storm couldn't distort. Fear met defiance. And for the first time, the balance shifted. Kira rose to her feet, her voice trembling but alive. "Captain, it's weakening. It doesn't understand resistance like this." "Then give it something to learn from," he said. And in that moment, fragile, human, infinite, they roared, not words, not even screams. A sound that was part defiance, part survival, part unbreakable truth. A sound that said, "We are afraid, but we are still here." Every crew member joined, their collective will vibrating through the ship like thunder. The psychic field cracked. The illusions shattered into light. Outside, the beast convulsed, its vast body rippling in waves of confusion and awe. It had never encountered prey that fought with unity instead of panic. It had never seen creatures so small make a sound so large. The roar of humanity, primal, furious, alive, tore through dimensions. Inside, the consoles exploded with data, readings off the charts. Gravity shifted. Kira gripped the railing, watching reality unfold into impossible beauty. The creature collapsing inward, then expanding again in a pulse of bioluminescent wonder. It wasn't dying. It was changing. The field dissolved. The rift returned, vast, quiet, and endless. The solace drifted free. Silence returned, not empty but full, like the space between two deep breaths. Crew members collapsed in exhaustion, laughter and tears mixing in equal measure. Kira turned to Ran, her voice hoarse. "You said we remind it what we are. What did it learn?" Ran looked at the stars, calm now, steady, and spoke softly. "That courage isn't the absence of fear. It's standing inside it and refusing to vanish." Outside the viewport, the beast hovered, watching, silent. Its shape flickered with faint echoes of human light, as though trying to remember the sound of their defiance. And deep within the rift, something vast stirred. Not as an enemy, but as a witness. The trial had ended. But courage, Elias knew, was not proven once. It was lived. Tomorrow, the next test would come, and humanity would answer again. The ship trembled, not from impact, but from the weight of something vast listening. In the silence between stars, the beast waited. Its gaze, unseen yet undeniable, pressed against every soul aboard. Humanity had screamed in fear before, but this time, they would scream in defiance. Elias stood at the heart of the bridge, surrounded by flickering light and breathless silence. Every monitor showed the same image, a shifting mass of light and void, a creature older than suns, watching through the rift. The crew waited for his command. Their eyes, hollow yet burning, mirrored the exhaustion of 1,000 trials. The psychic field was gone, but its echo still lingered, trembling in their bones. He inhaled, slow and deliberate. "We have one last message to send." The communications officer hesitated. "To the beast?" Elias nodded. "To whatever listens beyond it." He looked out the viewport. The stars there no longer seemed indifferent. They shimmered, curious, almost reverent. Humanity stood on the edge of extinction, but not silence. Never silence. Elias turned to Kira, her face streaked with tears and light burns from the neural surge. "Open every frequency," he said. "Not just this ship. Reach into the archives. Pull the Earth transmissions, the ones from home." Kira's voice trembled. "You mean—" "Everything." He met her gaze. "Everything that makes us human." The order rippled through the bridge. Technicians scrambled, fingers flying across holographic panels. Data streams burst open like veins of light. Centuries of recorded memory flooded the system. Laughter from ancient markets, lullabies from the cradle of Earth, the chaos of storms, the rhythm of war drums, the silent tears of lovers parting. It began softly, just a whisper through static. Then one by one, humanity's voices rose. Laughter tangled with cries, prayers intertwined with arguments, children's giggles harmonized with funeral hymns. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't perfect. But it was alive. The ship's walls vibrated with it. The sound transcended language, became a current, a pulse, a roar that carried the heartbeat of a species. Elias closed his eyes. "Amplify it. Let the universe hear us." Kira's trembling fingers pressed the final key. The transmission ignited. A sphere of radiant sound erupted outward, bending space itself. The roar spread like a tidal wave, washing over the void, climbing frequencies unknown to any science. The beast froze mid-motion. Its colossal form quivered, fractal tendrils recoiling, then expanding again, as if tasting something utterly foreign. Then came the silence. The kind that weighs more than sound ever could. The ship drifted, encased in that stillness. Lights dimmed. Power faltered. Yet no one moved. Every crew member could feel it. The gaze of something ancient, no longer hostile, but thoughtful. Elias stepped closer to the viewport, his breath fogging the glass. "You wanted to see courage," he whispered. "Here it is. This is what it sounds like." And the beast responded. A low hum filled the void, deeper than thunder, softer than memory. It wasn't sound, not exactly, but resonance. Waves of energy rippled across the hull, translating through the ship's sensors as pulses of meaning. Not words, but ideas. Not language, but understanding. Through every system, a single phrase repeated, carved into the minds of the crew. Courage understood. Tears welled in Kira's eyes. She didn't know why she cried. Relief, awe, grief. It was all the same. The beast began to dissolve. Its colossal form broke apart into streams of light, folding back into the rift. No destruction, no violence, just release. As if it had finished what it came to do. Elias watched the rift close, edges glowing like molten silver. He felt something shift, not outside but within. Humanity had stood before something infinite and hadn't begged. They had answered. For a long time, no one spoke. The bridge was filled with the soft hum of systems reawakening. Finally, Kira broke the silence. "Do you think it's gone?" Elias looked at the empty stars. "No, it's listening. Always will." He placed his hand on the console, feeling the faint vibration of the ship's engines stabilizing. "But it knows us now. And we know what we are. He turned to the crew, faces pale, weary, yet illuminated by a quiet pride that needed no words. Transmit one last signal to Earth, he said softly. Tell them. Courage was understood. The comms light flickered green. A single pulse left the ship, small, almost invisible, carrying the echo of the human roar through the cold, eternal dark. Outside, the stars flickered differently, as though whispering in reply. The crew didn't cheer. They didn't need to. What they'd done was not victory. It was recognition. For the first time in history, humanity had not been measured by the fire of its weapons or the reach of its machines, but by the depth of its soul. As the ship drifted homeward, Elias closed his eyes and listened. The faint hum of the engine sounded almost like breathing, like the heartbeat of an entire species still echoing through him. And somewhere beyond the stars, the beast, whatever it was, remembered that sound too. The universe was silent again. Not the silence of emptiness, but the kind that follows a great song, when the echoes fade, and only the truth remains. The solace drifted through the star field like a lone ember, carrying the faint heartbeat of a species that had just taught the cosmos what courage meant. For hours, or maybe days, no one spoke. The ship floated weightless in the aftermath, its engines whispering faintly against the void. The lights were dim, the air recycled and thin, yet there was peace in that stillness. Elias sat in the captain's chair, his posture slumped, but his eyes alive. The reflection of distant starlight shimmered across his face, tracing the lines of exhaustion and something deeper: fulfillment. He wasn't thinking of victory or survival. He was thinking of the sound. That impossible human roar that had shaken the stars, across the viewport, where the rift had once seethed with light and terror. A new nebula had formed, vast, pulsing, shaped like a heartbeat frozen in the fabric of space. Its colors shifted slowly, crimson fading to gold, gold into blue, like breath drawn through eternity. The crew gathered quietly behind him, their faces lit by the glow. No one could explain it, not even the scientists. The nebula wasn't a natural phenomenon. It was left behind, a mark, a remembrance. The beast hadn't simply vanished. It had answered. Kira stepped forward, whispering, "It's still alive, isn't it?" In some way. Elias didn't turn. Maybe not alive as we know it, but yes, it's still listening. He opened a small compartment beside the command console and withdrew a recording chip. The captain's log. A relic of an old Earth custom, preserved long after paper and ink were forgotten. He pressed the record node, and the console light shifted to amber. His voice was steady but soft. "This is Captain Elias Thorne, final log entry, mission designation Solace." He paused, eyes still on the living nebula. "The rift has closed. The entity, the one we called the beast, has departed. We don't know if it was a test, a trial, or simply curiosity, but I think it learned something. Maybe we did too." His words carried the weight of quiet revelation. When the universe dared us to go silent, we roared instead. Not with hate, not with power, but with everything we are. Laughter, grief, defiance, love. Every voice that ever lived. He drew a slow breath. "Courage," he said, "isn't the absence of fear. It's roaring louder when the universe dares you to be silent." A silence followed, the kind that feels sacred. Kira blinked back tears. Someone at the back of the bridge quietly saluted. The log light faded to blue, saved, sealed, eternal. Elias leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes for a moment. In that silence, he could almost hear the echo of humanity's roar, still bouncing somewhere across the stars, woven into the background radiation of the cosmos. Outside, the nebula pulsed again as though breathing. Weeks passed. Systems repaired. The crew regained their rhythm, though something fundamental in them had changed. They laughed softer, spoke slower, carried themselves like people who had glimpsed the infinite and found themselves worthy. When they finally charted their course home, the stars seemed warmer, or maybe it was just them. The journey back would take years, but time no longer mattered. They had seen eternity look back and nod. In the quiet hours of the voyage, Elias often wandered the observation deck alone. The nebula was still visible behind them, growing fainter with distance, but never gone. He wondered how many civilizations had faced such a test, and how many had failed. Perhaps courage was rarer than life itself. He smiled faintly. Humanity, the fragile species of flesh and noise, had roared at infinity, and infinity had listened. Centuries later, when Solace's transmissions finally reached Earth, the story spread like wildfire. The log was translated, studied, mythologized. It became known as the Roar of Humanity, the day the universe learned to respect mortals. Children across colonies memorized Elias's final words. Starships etched the phrase onto their hulls. Monuments rose on distant worlds, not to glorify war or conquest, but to honor a moment of truth. Even the alien races that once doubted humankind began to share the legend in their own languages. To them, humanity was no longer just another fledgling species. They were the ones who had taught courage to the cosmos. And somewhere, deep in the fabric of space, that nebula still pulsed, a rhythm that could be measured but never explained. Scientists called it an anomaly. Pilots called it a sign. Poets called it a heartbeat. No one knew what had become of Elias Thorne or the crew of the Solace. The record said they made it home, but beyond that, history fell quiet. Some believed they faded into peace. Others believed the beast had taken them somewhere beyond time. But one truth endured. When the universe trembled in silence, humanity had answered with a roar. The stars drifted by, ancient and patient, carrying the echo of that sound forever. And though the roar itself had long faded, its meaning endured. In every child's laugh, in every explorer's heart, in every whispered prayer beneath alien skies. Because long after the last star dies, the universe will still remember one truth. The humans were never the quiet kind.